Hello and welcome to the Next in Line podcast, where we are helping to prepare you for whatever is next in line. As always, I am your host, Chance Pitts, and I'd like to thank you for tuning into this episode. Guys and gals, welcome into another episode of the podcast here. I'm super excited to have you here listening. Thank you for those that have stuck with us. I know last week we didn't put an episode out, and that was a very weird thing for me. It feels like I haven't talked to y'all in forever. I do apologize for missing that episode. I've been going through a bit of a rut lately since the Colorado trip and getting sick and still trying to kick that. Also, the injury to my shoulder with popping it out of place during the Turkey Bash brawl this year with the Miguel brothers. It all just kind of took a weird toll, along with some circumstances in life that, like I said, have drawn me into a rut. But I'm working on pulling out of it, guys, and I'm hoping to spread a message of optimism and a new way of looking at things and a way of kind of re-energizing my life with the way I'm looking at things, and I'm hoping that's going to help you today. But before we get into that, guys, I want to make sure that I cover the housekeeping. If you receive value from this episode or any other episode of the Next in Line podcast, I would ask that you share the show with like-minded individuals who could also receive that same kind of value. That's the number one way for us to grow and to reach a larger audience, and in effect, guys, help more people. That's the number one goal of the podcast, to help the most people possible to realize what is possible in their lives and what they're truly capable of. Now, another way you can help us grow and reach more people is by interacting on whatever platform you find yourself listening on, guys. Whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, or any of the other outstanding platforms out there, you can like, comment, leave a rating or review, or subscribe on those platforms, and it's going to help us pop up earlier in the search bar when people look for personal development type podcasts. Now, guys, we've got that out of the way. One way I love to pull myself out of the rut, this weekend spent some time up doing some really good manual labor, a lot of hard work, helping my dad prep out that Westphalia Fitness Center up there. Just had a cool expansion, almost doubled the size of his gym. Got the front area cleaned out to put some gravel down for a parking lot for some people to come out. Added in a little bit more equipment, so really starting to see that thing blossom and grow, and I'm very, very excited for him. I know he is as well. But guys, that's kind of the end of the announcements, and I really want to get into the topic that I have selected for y'all, and that is the byproducts associated with personal success. And what I mean by that, guys, is we all strive every single day to find personal success, to become the best versions of ourselves possible. And what we don't often talk about, even on this podcast, is that we talk about the sphere of influence, we talk about the things that are associated with being a successful person, but we really don't dive into the nitty-gritty of how those things help other people. Why being successful and why being the best version of yourself is a very beneficial thing to those who are in your sphere, in your environment. And we're going to do that today using an example. So guys, the example I'm going to use today involves live oak trees. So do me a favor, close your eyes real quick and picture a big, beautiful live oak tree standing out in the middle of a field. Or better yet, if you're at work or you're at a park or you're someplace close to, maybe you got one in your yard outside, a place with a live oak tree or a big oak tree, just go take a gander at that thing, guys. It'll be a little bit easier to envision what we're talking about. Think about the qualities whenever you study that tree really in depth. Think about how it's typically a big and strong and hardy tree. Think about how the roots for the live oak tree dive deep. They're very extensive. They're very strong and sturdy, building out that foundation for that tree. Also think about how the branches and the canopy stretch rather high on that tree as well, so that it can make sure it gets all of the sunlight and all of the nutrients that it needs so that it can compete in its environment and so that it can survive over a long period of time. Also, guys, think about every single day, every single minute, every single second of that tree's life. It is actively trying to grow and improve. That is the overall and only goal that that tree has. But guys, I want you to take those qualities and I want you to just study that tree a little bit. Now, that tree might have a little bit of a negative connotation if it's been around a while or if it's in a crowded area of a city. It might have some negative situations that have popped up. Maybe that tree has caused other plants around it to die because the canopy of that tree, the large shade like we talked about, reaching up high and stretching into the sky, has overcast the other trees in the area. Or maybe it's stolen the water and resources from other plants in the area and caused them to die. You might see that there's not a lot of grass at the base of that tree. Now, guys, another negative thing that might have come out of it is maybe the root system has expanded and pushed out, and it's maybe cracked or destroyed some sidewalks. Maybe it's damaged some foundations for some buildings or houses, or maybe even broken some water lines and caused massive headaches and scrambling on humans' parts to recover and build infrastructure back into place. And maybe just the connotation around it is that through stealing those resources, it has sort of a fairness that it lacks, and it doesn't pay attention to any of the boundaries that are set by man by these sidewalks and this infrastructure and this foundation. It just breaks all of those on its journey to personal growth. And that can be seen as a very negative thing. But even though there's some negative situations around this tree, I think there's a lot of positives that we can take away from this as well, because we know that trees are a very serving thing for the environment when it comes to humans, when it comes to organisms that benefit from that tree. Some of those things could be that the tree soaks up excess water and it actually blocks wind and keeps erosion from happening in the area, and it keeps the soil from disappearing, so it preserves the environment just a little bit. Maybe it helps to create and to foster ecosystems and even sustain ecosystems by providing a food, by providing shelter, and providing a safety structure for different organisms in that area. Then, guys, we can't forget that trees take carbon dioxide through photosynthesis and turn it into oxygen so that we can breathe and that we can have a clean and healthy source for our respiration process. And lastly, guys, and just simply, that tree stretching out with those big limbs and strong branches provides shade to us and provides us a cool spot to hang out on just a hot summer day. And guys, you're probably sitting here this far into the podcast and thinking to yourself, Chance, why the hell are we talking about trees? This is a personal development podcast, and why are we talking about horticulture and nature and these things? Guys, I'll tell you that right now. It's never been about the trees. We're looking at the trees and we're looking for them as a metaphor and as a way to really dive into the oaks in our lives. See, think about the qualities that we talked about with that tree. Think about those big and strong qualities, the powerful qualities even that tree has, and keep that in your mind. Now think about how those roots dive deep and they create that foundation, and they create almost a standing underneath the base of that tree to where it's got very, very firm landings, and whatever happens to that tree, it goes back to those strong roots, and it keeps it from falling one direction or the other, or keeps it from being damaged by any kind of winds of change or any traumatic events that might come its way. Now think about those branches and that canopy that stretches high into the sky, not really to block others out or to overshadow them, but just to ensure that tree gets everything that it needs to grow in the right way. And guys, also think about how that tree spends countless hours and countless minutes, countless days out there just continuing to grow and continue to improve itself all of the time. Does that sound like anyone you know in this life? Does that sound like anybody that you look up to or aspire to be? Maybe if you're somebody that's really highly developed, or you're a strong leader, or you've found yourself in this personal development space for a long time, maybe you're thinking it sounds a little bit like you. But whether it's you or it's someone you look up to, the common theme would be that there are oaks in this life. There are individuals, there are humans who are the oaks of society. And I want you to look at those qualities, and I want you to think about which qualities that person possesses. They're probably seen as powerful. They're probably seen as that big and strong individual, just like that tree is stretching up into the sky. They probably have a foundation and a root and a set of ethics, a set of morals, a set of convictions that they hold true that keep them upright and keep them from falling to the left or falling to the right or going down a path that they don't need to go down. They also probably have a strong network that stretches out like these branches that gives them the nutrients for them to grow. It gives them the ability to consume and grab onto different avenues of development, if you will, whether it's talking to others through a great network, having just a great resource bank and network that they can rely on, or whether it's personal development podcasts that they consume, or personal development books that they consume, or just meditation. Now, guys, lastly, I would argue that that person, that oak in your life, spends a lot of time working on themselves in every aspect, whether it's spiritual, whether it's mental, whether it's physical. They are someone who shares these very same qualities as this oak tree. And now, guys, I think that whether it's you or someone else, you probably have some of the negatives associated with you as well, just like that tree does. You know, we talked about outgrowing the trees that are around you and stealing all the light and water and resources. There's probably some envious individuals out there for that person. There's probably others who might feel like they're cheated or they're just outright jealous of what that person has been able to do and accomplish because they don't understand that they are perfectly capable of being able to accomplish these same exact things if they put in the time, the effort, and the work. Now, continuing on that negative list, guys, I'm sure that that person has dealt with some collateral damage along the ways. I'm sure there's been some water lines, quote unquote, broken in their life. There's probably been some foundations shifted. There's probably been some sidewalks busted up a little bit on their way to where they're trying to go. Because we know that not every path, actually no path to success, to development happens without those hiccups along the way. So we know for a fact they share that quality of having to bounce off the boundaries that are set by other people and the fairness standards that are set by other individuals. And they push those and they stretch those. And that can be seen as a very negative thing, especially those of you that have experienced it. You know exactly what I'm talking about with that. But guys, with these oaks of people in our lives, we can't forget about all the positive things that come out of that. Like we talked about the tree being able to preserve its environment by soaking up the excess water and by blocking that wind to prevent the erosion. Those individuals preserve their environment. They preserve the people around them. They preserve the space that is conducive to what they are trying to do. They work as hard as they can to create the situation that will bring them the most success. That's through good habits. That's through building the home gym that they needed so that they can make sure they're hitting the gym and being physically active every single day. That's packing the bag before the night before so that they make sure they get up and go to the gym and they don't waste time having to pack the bag in the morning or having an excuse to leave. They make sure they meal prep so that they can have everything prepared and there's no excuses as to why they had to go out and eat. No, they have preserved this environment and created the environment that's conducive to them. They've also, like we talked about, help to create and sustain ecosystems for other organisms, for other individuals by providing some kind of nutrients. And that's, guys, most of the time knowledge, most of the time it's wisdom and experience are those nutrients that they're providing to other people in this life, the oaks of people that we're talking about. That's what they're providing to other people when we talk about food. We're talking about shelter and safety as well, just like that tree provided. These people provide a safe area for others to grow and to develop and to ask questions and to be a resource for those people. And they do provide that area very, very well, even though they often look intimidating like we talked about in the past because there's somebody that has their shit together. Next, guys, they take the harmful, they take the negative, and they find a way to spin it as a positive and to put it into perspective so that it's something that benefits others, just like that tree does in photosynthesis when it takes the carbon dioxide out of the air and turns it into oxygen through that process. They are the kind of people that they breathe positivity. They spew it out of every single orifice, whatever you want to call it, in their life, guys. They explore every single avenue they can to try to create a positive environment and to move people in a positive way. They don't succumb to the energy vampires and the negative people in their lives. They space themselves from those people so that they can have the benefits and that positive environment, just like we talked about with this photosynthesis example. Lastly, guys, sometimes these people are just the comfort spot for us. Sometimes they're just the ones that are willing to take the load and to let us sit down and relax, maybe even vent and blow off some steam by being that cool place to sit on a hot summer day whenever we need a little bit of shade. Guys, those oaks exhibit all the same positive qualities, and there's nothing like having that oak in your life or being the oak for someone else in their life, guys. And if you've gone through this episode and you feel like you're not able to see yourself as that oak, I challenge you to stop and to step up now. You've got to change your perspective, and you've got to understand that you're extremely capable of becoming that oak for someone else. Because, guys, if you're here listening to this podcast, the odds are you're already working on exhibiting some of those qualities, if not all of the qualities that we have talked about here today. You're trying to create a better version of yourself. You're trying to be the best version of you that you can be. That's step number one, guys. That's the first thing that you do on the journey to being this oak. So what you can do now is you can continue to develop. You can continue to show yourself as having the qualities of the oak, and you can share those byproducts of success by helping those around you, by reaching out and providing the best version of yourself to the people who surround you. And you might not think you have the opportunity to do this, guys, but it looks a little bit something like this. Have you ever been eating well or meal prepping, making good choices, and a coworker comes up to you and asks what kind of diet you're doing because they're noticing that you're having improvements in your life, whether it's just a healthier look or actual weight loss? You can take the time to coach that person, to show them how it's easy, how it's a lifestyle change, how it's something that they are truly capable of, and they don't have to diet on one of these fad diets and totally hate themselves the entire time. They can find sustainability that still fits their needs, still fits their desires and their cravings that they have, but in a healthy way. Another way that looks, guys, is by talking to your friends and your peers whenever they say things like, wow, I wish I had your discipline, or wow, I wish I had the time to work on myself like you do. By explaining to them that you do have the time and how that looks and how making a schedule and becoming organized can create a scenario for them to where they can have the same kind of results that you've been able to achieve as well. And on the form of discipline, guys, discipline is just being able to create an environment for yourself that is conducive to the habits that you want to form. Like we talked about, guys, putting yourself in a situation where there's not bad food helps your discipline. Putting yourself in a situation where you have to walk past the gym or drive past the gym, or you have your gym bag sitting out staring at you in the face in the mornings. Those are all things that create the environment to be disciplined and to have a better chance at staying disciplined. Lastly, guys, the last example I will do on what this looks like is just simply talking to a friend. We often see our friends, we hear them, we see their posts on Facebook, whatever it is, we see them struggling, going through these situations where they're down on themselves. They don't feel like they're capable of doing the things that they want to set out to achieve in their lives. Whether it's something as simple as losing 5 or 10 pounds, or beginning to run those marathons, beginning to tackle something, climbing Mount Everest, whatever it is, finding those people with that opportunity to fit in, to be that oak for them, to be that strong person, to be that comfort, that person they can find safety in and confide in, and encourage them, guys. Show them that they're capable of doing amazing things and help them do it. Follow up and continue to be part of that process. Because, guys, the truth is each and every single one of us can make a difference. And it's not going to be easy. Take me, for example, right now, guys. I shared earlier on the podcast at the very beginning that I'm in a rut. I'm in a place in my life where there's a lot going on. There's a lot of things that are kind of drawing me down right now and keeping me out of my daily cycle. And it's getting me into a spot where I kind of feel overwhelmed and I even feel buried in some ways. But there's a really good quote that I heard the other day by Christine Kane that goes a little something like this. Sometimes when you're in a dark place, you think you've been buried, but you've actually been planted. Guys, think about that right there. Sometimes when you're in a dark place, you think you've been buried, but you've actually been planted. If you feel buried, guys, it's time to start putting down some roots. Push like hell, drive for the surface, and start to become that oak that you know that you can become. And guys, along that journey, as you're developing yourself, as you're growing into that oak, work to give the best version of yourself to those around you every single day. Because in the end, who knows what kind of seeds of success you're going to be able to plant in every person you come in contact with life on a daily basis. Guys, thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. It's been awesome to be back in here with y'all. Again, I apologize for missing the episode last week. It's not going to happen again. We're going to get caught up, and we're going to be firing on all cylinders. Guys, if you received something from this episode of the podcast, we ask that you share the show with a like-minded individual. Take a screenshot, throw it on your Instagram or Facebook story. Let people know where you're getting your motivation, your inspiration, your development content from. And guys, always be prepared for whatever is next in line.